This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Minis.
Welcome to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Minis Sr. Many of you may ask, what is Stronger Than My Father? This podcast and organization is designed to make fatherhood famous again. I truly believe that fatherhood matters, and fatherhood would fix a lot of the situation that's going on here in America. So I would like to, first of all, thank my producer, Mr. Jerry McCarthy, and Jerry McCarthy Voiceovers. Those that are looking for great voiceover work, please reach out to jmvo.com for your voiceover work. And also I'd like to thank one of my hopefully future sponsors, Onyx Golf Apparel. If you're looking for great golf apparel, please reach out to Onyx Golf Apparel by going to onyxgolfapparel.com. Support him and support his brand as he's looking forward to continue to build his brand with golf apparel. So today, my guest is a friend that I've been knowing for a long time. This podcast is probably part 2 of Kobe and Shaq.
Oh yeah. If you've seen the Magic and the Zeke, Kobe and Shaq, here we go.
Kobe and Shaq, this is where we go. But I truly will say, as a friend I've been knowing for a long time, and I'm going to have some things on this podcast I'm going to admit to that he's going to throw in my face in the future. But I would like to thank my friend Stephen J. Brady. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
So I'm excited about being here and ready to get into some conversation.
All right. So hopefully we ain't slamming headphones by the end of this.
I may storm off twice. So
yeah, tell our audience a little bit about who Stephen J. Brady is.
Yeah, so I consider myself a native Nashvilleian. I was actually born in Jackson, Tennessee. So been raised here my whole life. I am the son of Lottie and Sandy Brady. Have one brother, 2 children, Julian and Peyton, and my wife is a newly minted dentist, Dr. Keisha Brady. So
hey,
if can
we get claps on that, man?
Yeah, let's get some claps for that.
Yeah, and she's been on the podcast before.
Yes. So we'll find that one, share it, and then we will give 10% off for any child that needs any braces.
Hey, appreciate that. As you know, pretty much you know me for the last probably 20 years. I've did everything around fatherhood.
Yeah.
Tell my audience your experience. You know, you're the third guest to come on who was raised with a father. And so me and you have, we always say me and your dad are, your dad and my dad is alike. They have a lot of similarities, hard work, driven, trying to, raise your kids. Your experience growing up, what are some of the pros and cons you feel growing up with your father that helped shape you to the man that you are today?
Well, I mean, as you know, our dads were of the old school.
Yeah.
So I had an old school dad that came in that, there were some days that I never even saw him because he worked so much, so hard. So he's been a railroader for, I think, 30 years. And then in the daytime finished concrete. So he was a third shift worker and then first and second shift from finishing concrete. So I think that was one of the things I was taught early was hard work. So that's probably why I worked so hard. But the things that I received from that I felt that a little bit I missed was that extra piece of fatherhood. Like, I don't believe I became friends with my dad until I was a grown man. So I think that's the kind of thing that, it's a push and pull, and you get some things you win and some things you miss. But I think that's just part of the process. I mean,
you brought something that sparked the interest. Why you feel that you wasn't friends with your dad till you got older? Because I was close. I was, bad kid. You know me. I was wild.
You were terrible.
Yeah. You need to keep my wife in here so we don't fight.
Yeah, she need to go and shut the door.
Why would you say it took you a while to become friends with your dad?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was perfectly clear growing up I was not my father's friend. So I was his child. And, it took it to that point that, he taught me about hard work, but he was old school. So there was plenty of whoopings to go around, and I was that child that got the whoopings. So, it just was a matter of you are my child and you stay in a child's place. But then as I got older, the more and more, I think after, as I graduated high school, going to college, and then after college, he saw me as a man. And then we start to interact as a man. So I think that's the thing is, initially he just raised me that I was his child and not his friend.
Or not. What about son then?
Yeah, he was his son. I was I was his son.
Yeah.
But by no means was it, Family Matters where you walk in and so it was he was more of what's the dad from Good Times? James Evans. I was raised by James Evans, and so there may have been some times where James had to go off, but that's how it was. It was Good Times.
Now, did you get affection from your dad?
No, that's one of the things I remember. I can actually remember when I stopped. When we were younger, you can remember hugging your dad when you were very, very small. And I remember one time I got one of the bro hugs, and he was like, "Stop, shake my hand from then now on."
Dang.
And it was like, at first I was like, "What?" Mm-hmm. And then after that, I shook his hand.
So, do you hug now?
I hug my sons.
Last time you hug your dad?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know. Good question. I have to come back. I have to give him a hug. I got to give him a hug and see how that turns out.
Hey, now I would say this. We didn't. I can't remember doing a lot of hugs with dad.
Yeah.
It was always shaking the hand.
Yeah.
All right. I remember my dad hugging me when we had when I graduated from TSU. We had the reception.
Yeah.
And I was gonna shake his hand.
Yeah.
He gave me a hug and said I was proud of you, and that threw me off.
Yeah,
I wasn't used to it.
That's when you got to do like one of them, like that. When he say you proud of you.
But I think as a child, how did that affect you mentally on dealing with just as you get older, you still have those memories.
Yeah.
Of hey, my dad didn't do this and I do that, and now you as an adult, as a father, how did that affect you raising your children now?
I think it affected me personally first because, like I said, again, old school. You never heard that I love you, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
So that was a piece that you were always seeking his approval, and you never knew if he was happy for you or if he was upset with you.
Yeah.
But I think for some of it, I think it worked well. But then even with my children, I don't know if I'm stunning them by being overly affectionate because. That's the piece I think I might have. Now, my mom was affectionate, but, I think that's the piece I'm trying to balance in the way with my two boys.
Yeah. Do you think young men, especially boys, need that affection from a father? Or you think fathers should not be really affectionate? Maybe, sometimes you feel like you're too affectionate, you're going to make your kids soft.
Yeah.
So do you think boys need that growing up, that affection, that affirmation from their dad growing up, or it doesn't really matter?
I think they do. I just think it has to be weighed out because then, too, like you said, I think you can go to a point where they can get too soft.
Yep.
And I think that's that balance because I know what works. What my dad did, though it didn't always feel great, it worked. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the things that, like, I don't want to stray too far from the formula that works, but I try to give my kids the things that I thought I missed.
Yeah. So now you have Peyton is senior in high school.
Peyton is a freshman.
Freshman in high school. I thought so. Him and MJ is the same freshman.
Yeah, and then Julian is a senior in high school.
Senior high school. How did that make you feel now, seeing your kids, freshman and now senior? What are you preparing your oldest for now? You only have 10 months left.
Yeah. So
what are you preparing for him for life now? As a dad, what are you doing for him?
So a few things. I think one is now we're starting to look at colleges. Mm-hmm. And, both of them are like me in different ways.
Okay.
So Julian is more like me because he's very independent. Mm-hmm. If I say right, he says left. That's just in his nature to do that. But that's how I was with my dad. If my dad said right and he was like, stay on the job 30 years, blah, 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 I'm like, I'm going to leave as soon as then. Yeah. So that's where Julian is like me. And so with that, I'm trying to allow him to kind of make his own paths. So even with colleges, I tried to steer him in a certain direction, but he wants to go in another direction. Mm-hmm. So I have to kind of give him a leeway and also give him an opportunity to see the world, to make mistakes. And I think that's where, me and my wife struggle, is to allow him to make those mistakes.
Yeah, I think, like you heard previous podcasts about protection.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on how far do we protect our children? Because we got to get into Peyton as well, but that just started to run across my mind. How far do we, as me and you fathers, how far do we need to go to protect our kids? Or do we just have an age time that we protect them and then we let them go make their mistakes?
Yeah, me and my wife have debates over this all the time because she tries to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. And And with that, I am trying to make sure he doesn't fall in any of the pits that I fell in.
Yeah.
But he has to make mistakes, and he has to figure them out.
Yeah.
Now, my wife has helped me because I have a very quick temper for anyone that knows me. So I'll use for an example. Okay. You know, I told my son, I said, hey, look, anytime something goes wrong, you tell me. I'm your dad.
Yeah.
Now, there are going to be consequences, but tell me first so we can fix them.
Yeah.
So we bought Julian. He started driving a year last year, and I got him a Malibu to drive. And I said, okay, son, go back and forth to school. You can go to the mall because we're in Franklin. Everything's pretty close.
Yeah.
And then the way he parks where the passenger side is to the house.
Yeah.
So when I move out, I'm going in and out. And then just so happened for some reason, I walked around to the other side.
Yeah.
And his car has damage on it. And I'm like,
oh, heck.
Wait a minute, what's wrong with your car? And he was like, so when did this happen? Oh, it happened about 3 months ago. 3 months ago. And
where's the explosion, Jim?
I was like, drop that bomb on it. Yeah, oh man. 3 months ago. And he was like, I was sorry, I didn't know you were gonna, I didn't know, I mean, you got me a car. And I said, son, I could have filed, I'm like, we can file insurance, we can do these things.
Wow.
You waited 3 months to tell me. I said, why did you tell me? I didn't know how you were gonna react. I said, I'm not upset about the car. The car is the car. We'll get it fixed or whatever. What I'm bothered by is that you didn't tell me.
For 3 months?
For 3 months.
So you didn't recognize your son's car was damaged for 3 whole months?
Absolutely not. So when he pulls in, he pulls in a certain way, and then I'm working from home now. So when I leave out the house, I only see the passenger side. And then the other side, I have no reason to go to the other side to walk around his car. So yeah, for 3 months I had before I found out that he had wrecked his car. So yeah, so needless to say, that was a dad moment there to say, look, son, if you get into trouble, you have to tell me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I'm trying to share with him, to say, no matter how bad the issue is, you got to share it with me.
Wow. So your fatherhood moment, did anything come back to your dad? What would my dad do in this situation? Or you just kind of went on your own?
Yeah. I mean, I handled it much different than I think my dad would have. Yeah. Because, again, we were old school. Yeah. So, my dad wouldn't have freaked out about wrecking a car, but it's to the fact that I didn't tell him.
For 3 months.
For 3 months, yeah, it would have went down a whole lot. It would have been some choice words. I don't know if Jim got the bleeps. It would have been some bleeps.
Yeah. You got all the bleeps on there.
Oh, man, it would have been about 8 or 9 bleeps on there. Child Protective Services, all those things.
Wow, 3 months. Well, let me ask you this. Now, raising 2 boys, and I don't know how much you heard of the previous podcast, you raise your boys different.
Yeah.
What is your challenges of raising 2 boys 2 different ways? Because I only have one that's 14. The little one is 7. Yours is 2, I think, 3 years apart?
3 years apart.
All right, so what is your challenge now, raising 2 teenagers with everything that's going on in society today? The things that you see on television, what is your challenges, or what do you feel like I need to do better as a dad to be sure my kids don't fall in them pitfalls?
Well, interesting enough, that's one of the things that I had to differ from my dad.
Okay.
So me growing up, my dad treated me and my brother the exact same. Now, my oldest brother is my dad's baby, his favorite. But
no dads don't have favorites.
Yes, he is. That's another story I can tell you. But I did have to, with my boys, they're so remarkably different.
Yeah, I
have to parent them different.
Okay.
So even with that, now I have Julian that is, now he's very quiet. He's very, like even when I gave them the possibility of coming on here, he was like, oh no, I got to say something. Yeah. And then Peyton wants to be famous. So he's like, I want to do it. Can I do it? Will he let me do it? Will people see me? So I had to start to kind of do things different. Like Peyton is more like me with, he likes sports. He likes everything that I like, he likes.
Yeah.
So I have to be very, very careful as a father not to spend more time with the one that likes the things that I like. And I have to be the same excited with Julian, though his things that he likes are different. Now, he's like me because he's different.
Yeah.
But he doesn't necessarily care to go, see Golden State play basketball. So I think that's one of the things I have to parent them totally different.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, and I think that's okay, is if I take one to something and I don't take the other one, I had to come to the realization that that's okay. I just have to spend time with them separate.
Do you think your boys do? I mean, I know you went back to saying you think you saying your JJ is your dad's favorite.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Because I was always, I used to think that with Brian and Marsha, that they were the favorites. But Dad never really. Now I don't know. I say this when it comes to cutting grass, he likes Brian weed eating better than me. He's like, I choose Brian over you. And then sometimes, and
that's
I think
you gotta stick inside the lines. He's like, Mark gonna take 15 breaks.
Let me ask you this: Is it? And my mom always taught us, never favor your kids. Never have favorites. You love both of them the same. Do you see that becomes an issue with a lot of parents? Do you think parents do that? You think parents favor one or the other? If they have more similarities in common with you, do you think that happens a lot?
I think it happens. I think, sometimes you have different types of relationships, and that's the thing I try to make sure, even with my boys, like our relationship is going to be a little bit different because I can do some with one thing and some with the other. Yeah. But no favorites for me. I have to make sure that, if whatever I do for one, I do for both. And if I can't do it for both, I don't do it for either. Yeah. So I wanted to be very sensitive to that. And like even with that, when my brother went away to college, my dad bought both of us trucks. Yeah. And I think that was a life lesson for me too, because I wasn't going away to Knoxville. I was staying here, and I was here. But when he came in, he was like, I'm buying your brother a truck, I'm buying you a truck. And that was a life lesson, not knowing I would have two boys. And I'm like, okay, sometimes I have to do things exactly the same, but then certain times I have to do things different.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of times if I'm doing something with Jordan, MJ tried to jump in. Yeah. Like I said, Jordan, great job. And MJ said, well, Daddy, I did this too. Yeah. So do you think that's MJ trying to seek validation?
Yeah, I think so. I think we all do that. If you kind of give too much praise on one in front of the other, I think that's going to be obvious, make sure Dad sees me too.
Yeah, and I think just for you and your brother, and I know y'all too close. Yeah. And I think that's good. My dad told me, whatever you do, y'all stick close. Yeah. Now, I'm probably closer to Brian than Junior. Yeah. Maybe because me and Brian talk or more, but I'm closer to Marsha than both of them.
Oh, wow.
I'm closer to my sister than my two brothers because we live closer and we talk every day.
And you can't fight her, son. Because Junior is going to fight you every chance he gets.
Junior in the fights. Why? I didn't think about that. That's a whole different thing. But now, what are you doing? And I know you have a great wife and you're doing everything your dad taught you. But now when you look on TV and you see young kids your son's age going to juvenile, what have you done to keep them away from going the wrong paths now up to this point so far?
So then that's where the James Evans comes out. It's that piece of, I'm not above threatening them, and that's to that point to say, you're like, you can't do what everyone is doing. Yeah. And, that hopefully that you raised them to this point to say, I better not get a call from the school. So I'm old school on that way. Yeah. I better not, even with both of my boys being in high school. Yeah. Like if they're struggling in school, they struggle. That's fine. But I better not get a call, you talking, cell phones, all of those things, then I'm going back old school. Yeah. Because my wife was a teacher for 10 years, and I know the struggle of teachers. Yeah. And then I've also get a chance for her to come home and tell the war stories of how the parent only comes in and supports their children.
And never support the teacher.
Yeah, and the teacher is in there struggling, and so I am very, very sensitive to that my boys aren't disrespectful. Yeah. And so, that's when I go left field if I hear one of my boys are disrespectful.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to get this topic here, and if you want to talk about it, great. If you don't, we'll skip it. When are you going to have to talk to them about sex and everything else?
Oh, man. We have had to have that talk, surprisingly.
With both boys?
Yeah. Peyton, well, both of them. Yeah. Julie and I had to actually have this in, when he's probably in the 8th grade.
You had to sit him down and talk to him about
7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
And it was, because he was talking about some of the things the boys were talking about. Yeah. And I was not ready. I was like, wait, what are we talking about? Yeah. So, it's a whole different ballgame. But you got to have that conversation early because now our children has information so early. Like, if they have a cell phone, Then you can say, I'm going to restrict your cell phone. If there is a computer, if there is an iPad, like they can see any and everything. And then now, game systems can get to the internet, and they see, hear, do everything. I mean, so you got to have the conversation.
And I'm trying to debate when I'm supposed to have that with MJ.
Now. Yesterday. If MJ is listening, have that conversation tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, who do it? Do I have the conversation, or do Toya need to have a conversation? And I'm struggling. I am really struggling to see who needs to sit down and talk to him about sex and everything.
It's always got to be a dad conversation. And it's got to be a dad conversation, because dad can kind of come from your wife. Toya can come in and give the perspective of a woman and what a woman likes and blah. But dad got to have a conversation too.
So you had the hardcore conversation with your son about it.
Oh,
or
yeah.
did you ease around it?
Well, I mean, he kind of brought it to me. I can remember we were at our old house in the bathroom, and he started asking questions, and I'm like, here we go. So, and then after that, it's like, take the gloves off, had a conversation. It's going to be weird, but you rather it be weird than have a grandbaby. So it's like, hey, we got to
he's at that age, it can happen.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, nowadays, I mean, these young girls that are 13, 14, 15, they look like they're 23.
Yeah.
So you better start having that conversation now, because if not, they'll figure it out.
And that's the thing where I'm still, because I remember me growing up, I'm like, who had that conversation with me about it? Growing up, I'm like, did your dad talk to you about it? Did your mom talk to you? Or you just kind of let life just go on its own? Because I'm sitting here thinking, who sat down? And I think my mom said something about when my neighbor got pregnant at 8th grade, and she said it better not happen to y'all. But I don't think like the bird, what they say, the birds and the bees and all that. Who set me down to tell me you better not go have sex, you better not do this, you better not do that, or you gotta, if you feel tempted, go get a condom. Who teaches you that now to provide? Because remember, we both trying to protect our boys.
Yeah,
that's what we supposed to do.
Yeah,
and are we protecting them by saying all that, or are we gonna skate around it? And that's the thing I'm still trying to debate now. Jordan, I think I'm if he stays the way he is, I think it's gonna have to happen earlier. MJ, I'm just kind of on the fence, like what I need to tell him now.
But then Jordan may be, like, I think the youngest is always going to be a little bit easier because they got a brother. You got an older brother that you've already had that conversation. And so some of it may be you go and have that conversation with your brother. Yeah. But that's kind of weird. I don't know, like, did you and Brian ever have talks about that? Like, me and JJ never really.
Y'all never sat down and talked about it.
Nah, I mean. But it was a different time back then,
What's the time different now? Yeah, it's the same, except just, but people just look different.
But if we wanted to go X-rated, we're gonna have to get this one.
You gotta get
parental. Yeah, no, we had it old school. Like if you had, we had cable, and if you could try to turn it in between two channels, you might get to see something. That was about the best that we had. Now you can Google nothing. You can watch Disney Plus, and you can see everything you need to see simulated. Wow. So that's the difference. It's like we had to force our way to find out, what we wanted to see and do. But now, I mean, they got it from 10 on up, 8 on up. It's crazy.
And did your wife ever sit down and talk with him? Have that kind of talk with him? Did y'all do it together, or did she say, Steve, you take care of it, or I'm going to take care of it?
I said I was going to take care of it.
Yeah.
But I have a mama bear that said I'm probably going to get beat when I get home, so somebody check on me. But she was like, I'm going to go and talk. I said, and wait until I have a conversation. And then she's going to try to come in and give her perspective as a mom. But, Dad got to have that conversation too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think what I tell people, the benefit of having a good father.
Yeah,
is going to tell you, and you're going to be curious.
Yeah,
and sometimes you're going to listen to your parents, and sometimes you got to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, you got to deal with it.
And so now anything you want to tell people that's listening of raising two boys that's in high school. With all the challenges going on, and then let me ask you this: the temptations, that with drugs, fentanyl is a big thing out here, and sometimes kids like to follow other kids. What are you telling your sons who are in high school about not following the crowd and being careful with drugs and everything out here now? What are you doing, or what are you and Keisha doing together?
And a lot of it, I think we try to show them. I think as much as possible, show them. bad examples. And my wife's in the medical field, so that's one of the things she does is she shows them what it looks like, if someone is on drugs, or kind of what it does to your body.
Yeah. And
I think some of that helps.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of it is just conversation, but then you kind of have to know your children even well. Like if you're seeing them struggle in an area of confidence or something like that, you kind of have to reinforce that, and then try to teach them on how to become a leader. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And I mean, again, both of my boys are completely different, and my youngest one, I don't ever have to worry about that because he is like, if he makes his mind up on something, you can't convince him. Yeah. And he even went to, I remember he was in school and he was too old to be believing in Santa Claus, and I hope he's not watching this. So he was like, hey, the kids at school said Santa Claus is not real, but I know he's real. I don't care what nobody say. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, he has that level of confidence that's like, I don't care what anybody say. Yeah. So I had to give my oldest one a little bit more attention because he's not always as confident in himself. Yeah. He wants to have that circle of friends, but his personality doesn't always allow him to go out and do those things. So so I have to watch very carefully and make sure that they don't follow the crowd.
That's true. And now, one area I'm gonna ask you that I asked a parent the podcast last month, because this is true. Yeah. With cell phones, social media is not the best for kids. Yeah. I'm gonna ask a 2-part question. How do you watch your kids' social media? Yeah. And do you watch what they are looking at? That's the first question before I go into part 2. Do you watch every little thing they're trying to watch on their phones and stuff with social media?
No, I put safeguards in place, but I don't hound it. Now that's my wife is the investigator. Okay. But because I know the danger of it from even a parent standpoint, but I mean it's because you can actually go down a rabbit hole, and if you every little thing, you'll be constantly correcting them. Yeah. I mean, there are going to be some conversations that you don't like, but then too, I think a lot of times for us, we get to a point where we forget where we were at their age. I mean, sometimes my wife wants to drop the hammer all the time, and I was like, Keisha, we were dating at 16, and that's almost that's all. I mean, but honestly, we got to leave. It's the truth. And then we have to even go back another generation, because some of our parents and older, my grandparents, some of them had kids at 15 and 16 and 17, and it's like, so again, we don't want them to make mistakes, but we
gotta let them make a little.
Yeah, I mean, my son next year, my mom actually said something, and it threw me for a loop. She's like, "You do realize Julian's gonna be 18 next year?" Yeah, and he's like 16 now, going on 17. I'm like, wow. So next year he will be 18 years old.
He's an adult.
So I have to start treating him as an adult, because like even for his birthday, he was like, well, yeah, I'm going for college. I want an iPad and an iPencil and blah, blah, blah. And my wife's like, oh, no, this. I'm like, he's going to be 18. Like, literally, he can do whatever he wants to. Yeah. We just have to pray and trust that, we raised him right, and that he has a God conscience at this point. Yeah. That then, that he does exactly what he should be doing.
And now, I asked his parent this question, and I thought she was going to hit me, and because she's raising a son without, the father relationship is not intact. If you went to, and I asked this question, if you went to your son's phone and saw pornography on your son's phone, how would you handle that with your son? With either one of them. If you pulled his phone and saw something, he was like, whoa, what are you watching? How do you handle that as a dad?
You just got to have those conversations. Because, I mean, if we be honest, there's a belief for us in our belief system that we don't do those things. But if we pull 90% of the men's phone, you're going to see it on there too. Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't freak out. My wife would definitely freak out. But, I mean,
what do you say?
You have conversations with them. Yeah. I mean, and you just have a conversation.
They develop. When I realized my son is developing in puberty, and I realized, and I look at him, I'm like, oh crap,
it's real.
He's in a position where if he wanted to have a kid, he could. Yeah. I'm looking at my son at 14 now. Yeah. There are some boys who have kids at 14.
Oh yeah.
So everything now my protection level has even went higher. Yeah. So who you talking to? So even though previous guest said, Mark, you can't protect your kids, everything now is like I'm watching every little move he make. But when he leaves my house, when he's at school, I don't know what goes on at school. All I know is I hope he makes good decisions. But me and my wife have never had that conversation with him yet.
See, now my wife and I think we get to a point like, we've had this conversation and still having this conversation as late as even last night.
Yeah. That
is, at this point, all you can do is trust and to pray.
Yeah.
Because if I let myself go down that rabbit hole, and I know myself, it won't work out for either one of us. Yeah. Like if I'm constantly monitoring both of them, yeah, it's not good. Like I won't be healthy because then I'm going to find something. Yeah. I mean, they're 14 and soon to be 17. Yeah. They're going to say something. Yeah. They're going to do something. I mean, and I just, if we're hypersensitive to it, then you're going to be chasing your tail their whole life.
Well, that's the thing where I look at myself as a dad, and I'm watching you. You don't realize it, and much we probably hate each other from times. I watch you as a dad because you have an older kid. Yeah. And I'm saying, all right, what is Steve doing with his son? Because your son is going to graduate. Yeah. I'm like, what is he going to do? What is he doing? So I'm watching you, how you raising your kids. And so now, once I realized MJ was in 9th grade, I'm like, oh crap, it ain't the kiddie stuff no more. Yeah. And it's the real thing. So now when you say, Mark, my son's driving, he had a wreck. Now I'm thinking I don't want to get MJ a car. I'm scared to get him a car to drive. So let me pick it back. This is an issue that I fuss about, and you probably gonna fuss with me too. Is we both grew up in church. Yeah. As you may or not be aware of it, I sense that church needs to talk about fatherhood more. Yeah. I know a lot of sermons are to encourage us. Yeah. And most churches, especially in the black community, I say about 80% are women. That's 20% men. Yeah. So, in your opinion, and do you think black churches, should bring more about fatherhood, or you think it's just not politically enough because there are more women in the church? Do you think preachers should talk more about family, fatherhood, and why fathers need to be in the home, or we think the preachers would be beating a dead horse?
No, I think it definitely should happen. Because I think you have to. I mean, churches would get larger if you had more men in. If men came in and men that brought their families in, churches would grow with the men. Yeah. So I think you have to. I mean, I understand the sensitivity of having so many women in the churches, but that's actually a systemic problem of not having any men available. Yeah. And so that's
fathers.
No men, no fathers. Yeah. And a lot of times those women that come in, they bring their children in, and then when their children turn 18, we don't see them again.
We don't see them no more.
Yeah, or and then there comes the prayer request of pray for so-and-so who is in jail, or pray for so-and-so that have shot somebody. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's definitely needed because there is a generation that's coming up or that has been here that, we're losing men every day. And actually, they started in the church with their moms. Yeah. But as soon as they get to age, they're gone. So I think we have to talk about it.
Well, I say we should have either more sermons or more teachings to train maybe young women or train young men the importance of fatherhood. Because now, just in my opinion, and I'm not bashing the church, I do it on my own podcast without you, is I don't think that we talk about the problem, number one. Yeah. And I think we skate around it. And when we leave church on Sunday, what do we get on Monday through Saturday? We can hear a good sermon, and we both. True. You can shout around the church, but on Monday, what are you taking with you?
That's true.
What are you taking on Monday is going to help you get through Friday?
But I think that's only one issue, though. Okay. Because the church has a responsibility of it does have a social impact to it. It does have a responsibility to the family. Yeah. But the church's number one responsibility is to make sure you get to heaven.
All right, let me say this then. All right. You can teach me our beliefs on going to heaven. Yeah. How many times you got to tell me that?
Hey, but
if you tell me what it takes to get to heaven and what I have to do on an everyday basis to get there, to me is more than just that.
I get it, but
because we got to make a living.
I get it.
You got to eat.
I get it.
And you got to have a good job. You need to have a good income. So after the jumping and shouting is done, and you're living good, you're living good. You have a house. Tell me how to live good. Outside of just saying Jesus every day, which I clearly know, but How do I make a good living? If the church responsible for teaching that, or the church is not responsible for teaching that?
I think I think the church has a level of responsibility.
Okay.
You know, even with that, Jesus did teach us things about economics and about people. But again, his first thing was to call for us to go to heaven.
Okay.
Because then too is like, what if you profit and you gain all the stuff and you live a perfect life, period, and you end up going to hell with it?
I agree with that.
I mean, and then two, maybe you live a different life than me. I need it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear preaching all day long, and I hope the door is closed. But if you're in a situation and something happens, I mean, some of us need it every Sunday. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
And so if you need it, I think that's the thing that the church has a responsibility for all the social issues.
Okay.
You know, I think the church has to deal with racism. I think the church has to deal with political issues. It has to deal with relationships in the family.
Yeah.
It has to deal with money.
Yeah.
And because, you know, we cry and pray for money all the time, but if we manage our money right, we wouldn't have to pray for it.
I agree with that.
So I think that's some of the things that I think the church does have a level of responsibility for it, but the church's number one goal, because especially, is to get us to heaven.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things I think sometimes we're too hard on the church on what the church should be doing.
Well, that's just my opinion, and I'm gonna say this, and you're an economics guy, you're a money guy. So this podcast where I say what I feel. Is number two, why do you see some black churches that are poor and some white churches that's thriving? Is it because of economics or what black people are making as what their income is and stuff like that, or do you just think it's because whites maybe had it better than us?
It's all the above. It's the social and economic plight of, we got to see, even with our country, we started at -5. So if you start at -5, you can't always expect for the whole race to be up in a matter of years. So if I start, and I had this conversation with my parents, you know, I was like, how much did you inherit from your parents?
Nothing.
0.
Yeah.
They actually had to go backwards. In the black community, if someone dies, we all have to do, and I hate GoFundMe with a passion. That needs to go down in history. Can we get a drop a bomb on that?
Yeah, drop a bomb on that, because I hate, because get life insurance, dog. It don't cost that much.
Yeah, please get life insurance right now.
I told Toya, if I die and I see you have a GoFundMe for me, I'm coming back to get you.
I'm so sick of it. And then you're trying to be loving and everybody, but if we offer you life insurance for $25 a month, you pay your $25, because when you dead, I don't want somebody trying to make me feel bad to give $100.
I ain't giving you nothing.
So so that's the thing.
You should have took care of yourself.
Yeah.
Crap.
So when we start to marvel at some of these, you can go into a small church of our counterparts, and then what they've done is left an insurance policy. To the church to say, hey, I want my church to grow. With us, I was in a barbershop. I keep telling this story. And this guy said, I want my last check to bounce. So he said, when I die, I want to have $99 in my account, and I'm going to write a check for $100. But see, some of that is the mentality of it. It's like, so I think we have to teach it all. We have to teach estate planning. We have to teach how to manage money. But some of it is, we've started with not just, you know, because some people say, hey, my grandfather came here with 15 cents. My grandfather came underneath a boat. And we were property. We didn't even have money. So I think we've made tremendous strides in the last couple of generations versus us saying, and a lot of times I think we kind of too hard on ourselves sometimes. But, you know.
Here's the thing for me, is that if you living good and you got a good paying job, can you teach somebody else in the church about, should we have classes in the church to tell people, hey, you don't have to make $40,000 a year. There's no reason why you can't make $60,000 to $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. Teach a class on trying to get better than where you at now. Unless you just want to live like that, that's fine. I watched you. I watched Brian, JJ. I watched you guys, and I was like, dude, I'm not working this goddamn factory the rest of my life. I'm gonna do something else. When I see how successful you are, I'm like, dude, it's not so much I won't emulate you. I just know I don't have to live a certain way. I don't live that way. So when I went back to business saying, you can teach me Jesus all you want. But I got a family to feed. I got a family to feed. At the end of the day, my whole thing is that, can I feed my family? And so if you ain't talking about that at church, for me sometimes, like, it's nothing for me to really listen to. Because I already know how to get to heaven. But I want to know how to eat.
But if you if you listen to the sermons, a lot of them are the same. I mean, because when you start to talk about faith, faith is not just faith to get, because if you can believe God for salvation, why can't you believe God for money? If I can believe God to heal cancer, and I've seen God heal cancer, I mean, literally seen it, so why can't I believe him for a Bentley? So, I mean, once you start to see it, everything that has a spiritual undertone has a natural undertone. So all the scripture was for us, and it has finances to it too. But I think a lot of times we don't listen and understand all the aspects of it.
Okay. Well, one thing I tell you is that teaching has always helped me. Teaching and reading. So once my mother gave me a book in 2003 about teaching Sunday school, I started reading a ton of books.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, how do you make it? You know, when people say I make six figures, I'm like, dude, I want to get to that. And here's the thing. I'm not so much about money for me. The thing at the end of the day is I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
And when you see people with bad credit, people who can't afford a nice vehicle like yours, people can't have that, I always wonder, why not? Is it a choice, your decision, or am I just going too above my head? I just hate seeing poor people being poor when you don't have to be poor.
Yeah.
You don't have to be poor as a black person if you don't want to be poor. There's too many opportunities out here, either entrepreneurship, great careers out here. I see people like you and the Ketas and the Russell, people who are very successful, but then I also see people in our church and stuff who are poor, who don't have the things, and you're poor and you're crying at church every Sunday, but you're poor. And I'm like, why?
But some of that is, okay, so then I just taught a seminar at our national convention kind of on this thing. So I asked and prayed the same question. I said, so God, why is this? And then I started looking up the statistics. Yeah. So the statistics is that in churches, only 5% of the people tithe regularly. 5%.
What church? Black church or white church?
Every church. Black, white. Can we drop a bomb on that 5%? All right. Thank you so much. So, okay. So when you're hearing that and you hear people say, like, it's easier for a person to get what we consider saved than it is for a person to give. So think about that. So even, okay, let's use a Bible example. So you had the young rich ruler. The young rich ruler said, I've done this. I haven't had sex with anybody. I've kept everything my parents said. Jesus, I've done everything that you said we need to do to be saved. Jesus said, sell everything and give it to the poor. And he was like, I'm out. Listen to what we just said. Yeah. So we will, as people in church, do everything that is required except give. So if only 5% of the people in the church give tithes what we were told to do, then only 5% of them will be rich.
Do you think most people have it? Do you think some people just don't have money?
People have money to do exactly what they want to do.
I knew you were going to say that.
Drop the bomb. Because the same people that say, I am broke, can you cash at me? Can you do this? And they'll be on a trip on Facebook the next month and you still owe me money. I mean, I'm just going to be honest.
That's what this podcast is about.
So when you start to see, everybody that's at church that hears sermons every week, they're not following exactly what is being said. Like how many every Sunday in every church, somebody gets up and say for offering time, give your tithes, give your offering. Yeah. And everybody be like, yes, I'm going to do that. And they walk in and they drop $1 in. And when they have $1 and they get blessed in return $1 or less, then what are you complaining about? You want God to do something for you that you're not willing to do for him.
Oh, well, here's why I'm about to get you upset. All right. Here's why I'm going to get you upset about
get
giving.
The bomb ready.
Yeah, get the bomb ready, Jim. So you're basically telling me your blessing comes by the amount that you give.
Not the amount that you give.
So you said
by the amount of the sacrifice.
Now you said if I give $1 and God bless me $1 back, that's what you gave.
Okay. Not the amount that you give, the amount that you sacrifice.
The amount that you sacrifice.
Okay, so again, this turned into a Bible lesson. Remember the lady that came in that only had the two
mice? Yeah.
She gave exactly what she had, but she gave it all. Yeah. And so God never requires us to give. It's not about the money. You got to think the blessing is not about the money. It's about the sacrifice.
Church is a business now.
But
it's a business now, man.
There we go. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I stopped him right there. It's a business now.
Yeah, okay. But it's not really a business if we did what we were supposed to do. If the other 95% of people gave their tithes and offering, we would not sell not one piece of chicken. We would not have a fish fry. We would not have any of those things because everybody would be giving correctly.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like money, honestly, should not even have to be talked about at the church.
Now, I will say this. It's a church that I've been to, I visited a couple of times, that's not black. Mm-hmm. And I hardly ever hear them talk about offering. And then in that church, it's probably a smaller, decent-sized church. Or do they?
And they got a lot of money.
That's because people there probably have good-paying jobs.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
People. That's the thing with my issue is, like I said, it's a business. To me personally, it's a business. I think we can talk about getting to heaven, but on Monday you got to go to the job. You got to make a living. Yeah. Now, I've been blessed to do the nonprofit for 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's still struggling. I pray a lot. Mm-hmm. I get blessed a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's what keeps me going. Yeah. Because I figure God ain't going to let me do nothing else. Because in my flesh, I don't want to do none of this. Yeah. But live a private life. Yeah. Like, I want to be Brian so bad. Yeah. And my dad told me, stop trying to be Brian. Be Marcus. Because I want to be Brian. I want to.
No, you don't. You don't.
I do, dude. I do.
No, you don't.
I don't, because my dad's side has always been private and quiet, and when I see all the problems that's going on in this world, and although a lot of them stem from fatherhood, I don't want to deal with it. Yeah. So I tell myself, I want to be private, but for the church, I know we was hitting that pretty hard. Is that I see it's a business. I understand that. I understand it's a business because you got to pay the lights. You got to pay a mortgage. If you have a mortgage, you got to pay that stuff. That's the area that I struggle with. I struggle with the business side when we should be just trying to help people who needs help the most, because everybody didn't have it. The father and good like me and you. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't have what we had. Mm-hmm. And I just feel inside of me, we should do more to help those who, and if they want the help, we should do more to help people that are not there financially, because I just hate seeing people poor and struggling and going through when you have knowledge and we have things out here to get you out of that. Okay, but the church is doing it. I think that's the thing that's the conflict, because a lot of times when people talk about the church, they talk about some special entity out there that is created, or the 501c3 that you might have. Yeah, we are the church. So a lot of times I get that criticism, and that bothers me a little bit, that says the church should be, but aren't you the church? And aren't you doing mentorship? Yeah. So if you are the church and you're doing mentorship, guess what the church is doing? Mentorship. Can we drop that bomb just one more time? Now, y'all see how we shut him up that quickly. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Here's the thing. So then who's the church if you're not the church? I think the church is just a building, and we're there on Sunday. All right. We all have. So the building can't help people with finances. No, but the people that goes to the building can teach them. But the people that goes to the building is the church then, right? Yeah, but the whole goal is teaching. Teaching, I tell you this, teaching has helped me more than preachers hollering. Teaching, when you teach me, I read a lot. Okay. So when I read about, how to write a grant. Yeah. When I read about, I'm having my sister train me on certain parts of social media, so I don't have to depend on nobody. I'm getting taught that, not a church. But it's all education. Yeah, but at the end of the day, the church is already, in my 47 years, the church done taught me how to live. Did the pastor teach you that, or did the church teach you? My mom and dad, who are part of the church, right? My mom and dad taught me. How I say from pastor, because I know he's gonna listen to this podcast, is I learned a lot of the things spiritually, and I learned from people's mistakes. Okay. I watch when people make mistakes in the church. I'm a person that I observe, and I say I don't want to go through that. Yeah. So I don't try to go that route. So when I see, families being broken and all that, I look at myself, and when I get home and I look at Toya and my kids, I say, even when temptation comes about me, when I see other women, I tell myself, I don't want to go through that. Yeah. So when the temptation hits, I just try to block it out, and I do my 10, and this is something I'm gonna be teaching next month: 10 decisions versus 10 consequences. I don't want to go through those consequences, because God has already told me what you don't supposed to do. Yeah. And if you go out here and do it, like you said about Julian, you got to deal with some kind of consequences, and you don't know what move God's going to make. That's right. I don't know what movie gonna make. If I'm in the bed with another woman, is he gonna stop my heart?
Yeah.
And then what happens to my kids is that they say your dad died in the bed with another woman.
That's cold-blooded right there.
And that sticks with them. So when we look at church and we look at fatherhood, my whole angle as a father is to try to make best decisions for my sons. Don't have to reap any kind of bad benefits from his dad who grew up in the church making bad decisions. So you can scream at me on Sunday and you can preach hard, but my whole mentality when I leave church is that what can I do for my family? That's my mentality every day when I wake up.
But for me, I consider myself to have 4 dads. So I don't think one dad can always give you everything.
Whoa.
I mean,
you gotta hit.
So I have
4 dads. Is that a bomb?
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Four
for
dads.
That. 4 dads.
All right, explain that to me.
So I stand without excuse. So I have, one of course is your heavenly Father that is the guides that you always have. That's going to be with me wherever I go. So I have a heavenly Father.
Yeah.
So then my natural father, Sandy Brady.
Yeah.
Sandy Brady is the one that have taught me how to be a hard worker, to take care of my family, to be a real man, to, now you got a little bit of everything going on. So Sandy Brady was my guide. So then I have my father-in-law, Larry Williams, who is my dad for business.
Yeah.
And every business decision I make, I go through Larry Williams.
Okay.
And without his guidance and his direction, sometimes, because he's experienced it.
Yeah.
So Sandy can tell me how to do things that he's experienced. And then also my pastor. So there's only some things that I only talk to Bishop Davenport for. Yeah. There's some things I only talk to Sandy Brady for.
Yeah.
And so all of those pieces, I'm like, God has given me them that I stand without excuse. So if I die and go wherever I go, like, he's going to be like, I gave you every resource that you possibly need.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of that, I know we put some things in everything on our natural physical father, but what if they never had that experience? They can give you, they can give you direction, but they can't say from an experience standpoint. But that's what I think Stronger Than My Father is so important, because now you have a community of men that can give you things that your father can't give you. Even if you had your father in your home, if he's never been a millionaire, how can he tell you to be a millionaire?
No, I agree. I have one guy who's a mentor to me. He worked with me in the factory, and he was the one that encouraged me to go back to school. And I had a Mount Rushmore of guys who I was like super close to. And I told myself,
was I on that Mount Rushmore?
Heck no, you ain't on that. Now, I will tell you, before I go to Mount Rushmore, I for years, you and JJ was the reason why I went to TSU. I give you that props. You, JJ, and Brian was the reason why I went to TSU.
Okay.
When I first went to TSU, who did I come to for advice? That was you. You told me about watching the women. Watch this, Mark. Watch it.
Why you always got to go to women first? Then I didn't tell you about education and nothing like that.
No, I watched you.
Okay,
I watched you. Here's the thing. And I'm thankful for this opportunity, because we've seen some young men come to our church who didn't make good decisions.
Yeah.
When we was all in the deacon office and y'all talked. When I was working at the factory, what did I do on Fridays? I would come up to the student center, because I wanted to be. I felt like that's where I belong. And God, I ain't gonna say God took me a different path. I chose a different path. And for some reason, I watched y'all. I watched you guys graduate college. I watched you guys be successful. And when you hanging around good people, that tends to rub off on you. Instead of me saying I'm jealous of you because you have a nice new Cadillac and stuff like that, I was like, man, Steve's successful. I want to be like Steve. I want to be successful. So I probably, out of all of them, you was the one I watched the most. And I admit that on this podcast, you was the one I watched the most, and I probably still watch you in some different ways.
Subscribe, share. There you go.
I still watch because how you navigate through stuff, how you navigate through business and stuff like that. And sometimes I was like, man, I want that. And it might not be the same exact way. I don't want to be no accountant or anything like that, but I want to be somewhat of successful where I saw successful people. And like I said, we grew up in the church together. And like I said, we all have paths that we go down. I think, to tie this up as we wrap this podcast up, is that I just want to see the church do more teaching. And I understand how Pentecostal churches work. I've seen other cultures and other churches teach people the things they need to do to make it. If they choose not to take your teaching, that's not on you. But if you're successful, teach other people how to be successful if they choose. And if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. When I mentor, I'm mentoring these young men in 3 ways. Number one, I teach them to love God. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing I tell these boys. You got to find one, because if you don't love God and pray, you ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
That's what I tell you up front.
Yeah.
That's the whole truth. Then I said, over time, try to forgive your father.
Yeah.
Because if you don't forgive, it's going to haunt you the rest of your life. And then number 3, be there for your kids when you have children.
Yeah.
Be a good father. Yeah. That's pretty much what I do for mentorship, is teach. So that's just my hope. And I would say I have nothing against the church. I just say I understand how church operates. Instagram has showed me a whole different angle, especially black churches with all the foolishness. But at the end of the day, I said I want to teach my sons and the boys I work with how to make it, how to survive, so you can be successful. And that's what I want to see for the church.
Well, right before, I mean, just to kind of go back just a little bit before you close. You know, you say that, you know, you've been watching us. I mean, we've all been watching you. Mm-hmm. And there's been conversations that we've had, and, you know, Brian will probably kill me as soon as I see him next. But, I mean, we were in the office, and he was like, I need to get it together because all of my siblings have businesses. Mm-hmm. And that showed me that he was watching you. He said, you know, Mark has a thriving not-for-profit. My sister has her own business. My brother has a barbecue joint, and I don't have that. Yeah. So at the same time that you're watching us, and actually the things that I'm telling my sons to watch is you. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, honestly, you know, though I may have a decent job, they can't, when I die, go walk in that job and start. Yeah. And so, like, even with that, my wife being a dentist, you know, I even was talking with her and the boys, and I'm like, when she dies, like, you just can't start seeing people. Yeah. Like, you're going to have to do something. So I think that's one of the things that we've been trying to train them to say, look at Marcus. You can work for yourself. Yeah. And if you don't want to take tomorrow off, you take tomorrow off. Yeah. I mean, and so that's one of the things is I think that's a piece, and then you're being an example to these young men here that you can do exactly what you want to do. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things, and I do agree. I think the church is a great place for us because that's where you get people gathering and you're getting young children. But you are the church. You're doing God's work every day.
Well, I try to do what I do because I see a problem that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in the African American community. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about fatherhood when a lot of the problems, when I see the boys at our church that grew up under us, the ones that's under us, and I seen all the mistakes they made. Yeah. When Lil D and Daryl was on the podcast, the first thing he said something that was so strong that it threw me off. He said, it's not so much I needed my father when I was young, I need him now. Yeah, yeah. He says, I'm 26 and I have questions and stuff. You can pick up your phone and call Mr. Brady. I can pick up my phone and call my dad anytime I get ready. Yeah. He may not answer, but he's going to call me back. Yeah. And first thing my dad says is, are you okay? Yeah. What do you need? Yeah. What's going on? And that's the thing that I'm just trying to preach, is that fatherhood matters, and fathers need to take their children to church. Yeah. And I just think, you know, you get tired of seeing single moms crying every Sunday for their kids and stuff. If a man just stood up and said, I'm gonna raise my children, you eliminate a lot of these problems. That's who I am as an individual. So my last 20 years of my life has been centered around fatherhood, especially from working with Dominique. But I think when I see you, when I see your boys, when I see JJ raising these 2 kids in church, all of us had our dads. Yeah. And so and most of us made great decisions with our lives. We all gonna make mistakes. Ain't nobody gonna be perfect. All right, we know that. But we all made great decisions. So me personally, I applaud you because I watch you. You was like the person, you may be watching me, but I was watching you. You know, when I see you with the nice cars and stuff, I was like, do whatever I want to have, because you did it. And when you were doing inroads, I wasn't smart enough to go to inroads. And I used to blame my mom and dad for that. And my sister one day, she ripped me apart and she said, you could have did the same thing I did, but you wanted to go chase girls.
Well, I was there. You can drop another bomb on that. He did chase girls. We're going to bleep this out for LaToya Manise, so she never got that. He was the only guy that, he never chased only you, Toya. But you wasn't in them girls, though.
But so those are things where I applaud you for, and I watch you the inroads and all that, and then you had the good paying job and so I was like, man. So when I'm working in the factory, I was like, I want that life. I didn't plan for me to be an entrepreneur and me work for myself. That was never in the plan. It just worked out. Only way I knew I'd get out the factory, I say this, I close. Only way I knew I could possibly get out the factory was grow the after school program and say, let me get some kids in here so I can leave, because I knew that I had more in my life than just building an airplane wing. Yeah. And when I looked at my supervisor, and there was I left Triumph June 1st, 2018, and I said, God told me it was time to go. Mm-hmm. And I left. And when I put the badge in the box, I looked up to God. I said, please help me find a way to take care of my family. Yeah. I said, I'll do your work even though I don't want to do it. And I need to quit saying that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do none of this. Yeah. I want to live a quiet, normal, private life. And that's what I want. But God says, who's going to serve the fatherless? There's so many areas that people can serve and help. There's people who serve hungry. Yeah. But for me, is that I feel bad when a kid don't have a daddy. Yeah. That he can hug and hold and just say, you're my father. You're the one that guides me. So I applaud you, Steve. I know you got greatness coming. You work hard. I see you work hard in the church. And I see you do your thing. And like I said, I follow you. I watch you. We may not always agree on stuff.
Never.
But I think just at the end of the day, with all of us, me, you, Brian, JJ, I was growing up, one of us leave this earth first, it's going to be devastating.
Yeah, yeah.
But we can look at ourselves now and say we've been knowing each other pretty much all our lives.
Yeah, yeah. We've known each other more than we've not known each other.
Not known each other. So keep doing what you're doing. As we wrap this up, man, I really appreciate you coming out in this bad storm to come, because I was waiting for you to text me and say I can't make it.
Oh, no. I was like, if I go into any ditch, I'm going to send a bill to Stronger Than My Father podcast.
So thank you. Like I said, we both transparent, open about life, church, fatherhood, and keep raising your boys. And can't wait to go to Julian's graduation.
All right. I can't wait either.
Are you going to cry, dude?
I don't know. I'm not going to get on here and lie. I'll be having this Onyx towel. Thank you, Onyx. I'll be crying with the Onyx towel.
Are you going to cry, man, when your son walks across this stage?
I don't know. I'm going to try not. I'm going to cry at home. Like I said, I'm going to wait till I get in the car like on Friday.
Well, you're doing a good job with your boys, man. You're raising two sons, and I got to go to some Peyton football games, too.
All right.
Hey, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. If you like what you hear, please click the subscribe button. And if it's on your heart, leave a donation to help us continue to grow this podcast so we continue to talk about the fatherless and bring more awareness to fatherhood and hopefully make fatherhood great again. Thank you so much, Jim McCarthy, for all you do for our voiceover and production work. And I will see you again as we continue to talk about fatherhood with Stronger Than My Father podcast. God bless you. Stay safe.